In 1969, Tatsunoko Productions released a comedy anime called Hakushon Daimao. It's not as famous or successful as other properties by the studio, like Speed Racer or Science Ninja Team Gatchaman, and it's so obscure I managed to stump Akinator with it. Hakushon Daimao, also called The Genie Family, stars a normal schoolboy named Kan, who finds an old bottle in his dusty attic. Upon sneezing, he summons a rotund genie with a love for Hamburg steak. The genie, named Hakushon, has one purpose in life: to grant the wish of the one who sneezed, whether it's intentional or not. It's kinda like the classic story of Aladdin, except instead of a powerful genie you've never had a friend like before, it's a bumbling genie who, well, he tries his best. He may not make you into a prince, but he'll build you a castle out of toys, become a pachinko machine, and keep that mean dog off your back. Okay, maybe not that last one. At least you're not limited to 3 wishes. He's only bound to grant wishes until the person sneezes again, then back to the bottle he goes. He is accompanied by his daughter, Akubi, but instead of being summoned by a sneeze, she responds to a yawn. While she's far more capable than her father, she's also a troublemaker, and if she isn't twisting the words of the one that yawned, she's doing something cheeky and causing problems. Fast forward to 1992, Saban licensed the show for an English version. It was dubbed and aired in a similar time frame as other Tatsunoko shows like Hutch the Honeybee, Tekkaman Blade or Techno Man, and most famously Samurai Pizza Cats. It's possible Saban bought them all in some kind of bundle. When Saban localized the show, opposed to calling him something that matches the name Hakushon, which is Japanese onomatopoeia for a sneeze, they're like, nah, let's just call him Bob. And so the show was renamed Bob in a Bottle. Bob in a Bottle has a lot of anime dubbing tropes of the era. The opening is completely different, the soundtrack is replaced, the names are changed, all the episode names are puns, and it's also subject to censorship. On paper, this show doesn't seem like it needs a lot of editing or censoring. The setting is basic enough that it can be repackaged pretty easily. A kid lives in a suburban neighborhood with his parents, but happens to have a cartoony genie living in a bottle. However, I'm sure most of you know things that are kid-friendly in Japan do not equate to kid-friendly in the West. This show does have its share of dirty jokes or topics like death, alcohol, and gambling, stuff that obviously won't fly on Western TV. Perfect example. One episode involves Bob seeing if he can help one of Joey's friends. His friend lives in poverty with his many brothers and sisters, and their father is a deadbeat. You can kind of see where the story's going when it shows a picture of their mom on the wall, but according to the dub, she went to go take care of grandma in the hospital. You'd guess the dub is able to play this off, but later in the episode, Bob disguises himself as their mother, wearing a halo above his head and floating near a painted mystical stairway. Later on, the dad needs help pretending he's in the hospital, and right after, they have a scene where people are mourning the fact he's in the hospital, and they say it a few times to reaffirm he is indeed in the hospital. So while the show doesn't need a lot of censoring, it still has its fair share of it. The show is dubbed in Canada by Cinar Studios, a now defunct media company also known for working on shows like Arthur, Madeline, and Caillou. Probably the best known of the cast is Sonia Ball, best known for voicing Jane Reed, Arthur's mom, in Arthur, and Whimsy in Whimsy's House. Sonia voices Joey Carter, a kid who is in possession of the titular bottle.
It was on the table ready to be eaten until you showed up. Yeah, tidy this. I'll call my friends and cancel lunch. Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe, isn't it? Anyway, he left me in charge of making sure nothing happens to it. He thinks it's gonna make us rich.
The late Gary Jewell voices Bob, no relation to Jerry Jewell from Funimation. He voices the genie in a more silly, higher-pitched voice than his Japanese counterpart, but it works well. His resume is sparse, and his only other notable role is Officer Hallcroft in Mona the Vampire. Bob is his only role as a main character.
You sneeze, I please. What can I do for you today, Master? Shall I whip you up some ice cream? Or maybe you would like to fly to an amusement park. I'm a genie, not a construction worker. I don't want to do it, I tell you, and you can't make me. Don't you have a favorite hobby or recreational activity? Just name it and I can provide it for you.
Liz Mccrae is the voice of Lana, nailing that mischievous and annoying nature of the character, in a good way. She is also known for voicing Binky's mom in Arthur, amongst many other roles in her career.
What's the matter, boys? Aren't you glad to see me? How come I get the feeling that you two don't trust me?
I'm pretty good at juggling, aren't I? Oh! Oh boy, I can't believe how silly the two of you look right now.
Other voices include A.J. Henderson, Jane Woods, and Richard Dumont, all of whom were in Arthur. There's kind of a theme going on here. The soundtrack was done by none other than Saban co-founder Shuki Levy. While they usually riff on dub soundtracks as they're usually hyperactive and noisy, Levy does his magic and makes a fun, memorable score that doesn't feel like noise for the sake of noise. He's also known for working on Inspector Gadget, Digimon, and the Ocean dub of Dragon Ball Z. The opening theme he composed is kind of a reggae song that serves as a leitmotif for the soundtrack. So the dub is pretty good for what it is. But here's the thing, it was never released in the US, but instead aired in Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. That's one of the reasons this show is very hard to find. The existing footage of the dub is in potato quality. One is even just a half episode. I can't even find any commercials from any station that aired it, let alone it being mentioned in a TV guide or something. The only piece of info I could find is that it aired at 6 in the morning on a New Zealand channel. Even though it didn't catch on in the US, it was very popular overseas in Europe. It was dubbed into several languages, including German, French, Spanish, Swedish, and many more. It's easier to find a German episode than any in English. Despite being so obscure that you can barely see a single episode, Saban did air the whole series, all 52 episodes. In fact, some live-action shows Saban licensed also show Bob in a Bottle. For example, footage of Bob in a Bottle can be seen in the Power Rangers episode Bad Reflection on You, which aired on November 27, 1993, around the time Bob was on TV. In this episode, the Rangers find themselves in detention. Following the character Bulk saying it was time for his favorite cartoon, he whips out a TV from his detention survival kit, sure why not, and, you guessed it, the theme song for Bob in a Bottle starts playing on TV. Another show that featured Bob in a Bottle was Masked Rider. It was on the show twice, once in the opening episode, and once where the main character spends all night marathoning TV shows at double speed. So it's established this show is very hard to find, but it may not be as lost as we think. When doing research for this video, I found this listing on the Library of Congress. 34 video cassettes containing all 52 episodes of Bob in a Bottle. Now, I don't live anywhere close to Washington, D.C., so if somebody in the area wants to take a look, please do so and let me know what you find. The link is in the description if you'd like to take a look. Apparently, there is another English dub that aired in the Philippines called The Sneezing Magician, but any and all info is hard to come by. It aired in the late 90s, long after Bob in a Bottle had ended. According to what info I could find, Hakushon and Akubi were, appropriately, named Achu and Yon. Aside from that, there is zero info. Hakushon is probably best known in the West for being the single character to not be included for the international release of Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, a fighting game released on the Wii. In this licensing nightmare of a game, he was the one and only casualty. So to make up for Capcom getting 2 new fighters, Tatsunoko added 3 fighters. See, when licensing TVC for the West, many companies own the different properties for the Tatsunoko shows. In the 2000s, Disney bought out Saban Entertainment, and there's a very good chance this is the reason Hakushon was not included, but this is chalked up to, quote, unspecified legal reasons. But of course, all this is up to speculation. But let's be real, he's awful in this game. In any case, Hakushon Daimao has seen kind of a comeback recently. In late last year, they started doing promo videos featuring people dressed as these characters in these big costumes. And in January 2020, Tatsunoko announced for the show's 50th anniversary they would do a follow-up series. The show started airing recently, and there's no official release yet, but the interesting thing is, for the press release, Hakushon and Akubi have official names, and they're not Bob and Lana. Hakushon is Hashu, and Akubi is Ya'an. Who would have thought? Maybe we'll see something soon. And that's the story of Bob in a Bottle, a slapstick 60s anime that came westward in the 90s and is very hard to come by. Please leave a like, subscribe, and click the bell, and let me know in the comments, what did you think? Do you have memories of Bob? Do you have any info I didn't cover here? What else should I do for this video series? I think next time we'll do one more 60s anime character that's a bit more well known. Thanks again.